Hello watchers, welcome back to the channel and today's review where I am going to feature this piece from Alpha Watch, and you can see already there Alpha established 1993 embossed on this I guess felt or velvety material. This is the fairly standard packaging that it sometimes comes in, a little bit of an instruction card on the back there, and so let's see what we got here. So yep, this is a very heavy homage of the Omega Speedmaster Moonwatch. You should recognize that. I think one of the most iconic chronographs in the world, of all time, really. So I think straight up an homage warning for those people who don't like homage watches. This is homage like no one's business. Probably the heaviest homage watch that I've ever gotten my hands on. So I think straight up I'm going to mention that this is the Moonwatch mechanical chronograph from Alpha. It doesn't appear to have any more specific requirement for designation because at least currently on the Alpha site there is no other black dial, black sub-dial version of this watch. There is only one version. So, I can tell you, if you look on their website, there is no version that comes with any other form of glass, for example. There is no version that comes with a solid case back, I should say. So this one, on their site, it retails for US 185. Sometimes it goes on special. I believe right now, when I checked, it was on special for 160. So that's really what you're paying for this very heavy homage, borderline knockoff of the Moonwatch. I think it just skirts not being a knockoff by ostensibly putting Alpha on the dial there, and even that, I mean, Alpha versus Omega. It's really pushing the boundaries, isn't it? And I think if this was marketed officially in the US or Europe, I'd be surprised if there isn't going to be a lawsuit very soon. So the movement in here is the Seagull ST1903 manual wind column wheel chronograph, and it's not wound yet. So let me just get that going. And you can see at the first position after you open the crown is the winding position, right? And you can see that sub-seconds on the 9 o'clock position there, that's sub-dial, that's actually started counting, whereas before it was still. The 21,600 beats per hour, 20 joule movement with a 42-hour power reserve when fully wound. It's got a running seconds that you can see there already at the 9 o'clock position. 30-minute totalizer at the 3 o'clock position, and the first major difference with the Moonwatch I will mention is that thing on the 6 o'clock, that's a 24-hour sub-dial. It is not a 24-hour totalizer, and that word chronograph on top of it, I'm not sure why that's there. Maybe to mislead you into thinking it is a chronograph totalizer. It isn't. It is a 24-hour hand, which I think in a watch that doesn't have a date, I just wonder how useful that is. I guess maybe it's useful if you weren't able to look out, the window to see the color of the sky. Maybe, I don't know. Let me know if you find that useful in any way. So I'm just going to show you. See, that's one of the things here. That crown is not refined at all. So I've pulled it out to the second position to show you time adjustment, and I'm just going to turn the time forward, and you can see, right, of course, that sub-dial is forwarding in I guess half the rate of the hour hand. Is a 24-hour follow-on sub-dial. I'm just going to pull that out again just to get it to kind of a default position here for the review. Okay, so 24-hour sub-dial there. The case is aping the Moonwatch, as you would expect, 42 millimeter in diameter. It is in 316L still, and it is different in thickness though. It is 16 millimeter stick, just over 16 millimeter stick to the top of the crystal there. The Moon watch, I believe, is actually considerably less than that. It's 14 point something from what I've looked up, 14 point something millimeters thick. The lugs, in this case, are 20 millimeter lugs. The case, again, it's a copy. It's brushed and polished, and they've tried to achieve the same polished facet, that angled facet on the side there. That's the same, I guess, feeling of the Moon watch, but it's different. It's nowhere near as refined. The surfaces, I guess the transitions are not bad, but they're just not as sharp as I've seen in Omega, and you wouldn't expect it in a $180 watch, would you? But the shape is quite different. If you look at pictures of the Moon watch, that's not the same. Just the overall shape of it. Is that an attempt to be different? No, I don't think so. I think they try to copy it, probably, and they just can't achieve the same level of finesse there. The dial is matte black with fairly utilitarian baton hands, both in the middle as well as all the subdials. The subdials are all fairly simple hands, and I think that's pretty much the same as the watch's homages. The big difference, the main difference, I think, in the hands is the red central chronograph. Now, in this case, this one is a red triangle. It does not have a loom pip like the Moon watch does. The other big difference with the dial as well is that, yes, the hour markers, you can see they are applied, but everything else is flat printed, including the subdials. And that's the difference there. I believe Omega does sync those, or I guess has a bit of concavity on those three subdials. This one's pretty flat. There's a slight raised edge in the central part of the subdials. I don't know whether I can actually translate that to this camera, but there is a slight raised portion in the central part of the subdials there, but it definitely doesn't concave in to give that depth that you see in the original watch. The case back here, you can see already is screw-in, right? You can see the printing around the side there, mechanical chronograph and whatnot you have there. And it is a display back. I believe it's not sapphire. I don't think it is, because they don't say that it is. And otherwise displaying a movement that is pretty good, to look at. I've enjoyed looking at this column wheel chronograph, and you can see, for those who don't know, I'll do a separate video about column wheels, but that right there under my thumb is the column wheel with a blue screw in the middle there, right? And otherwise, minimally, basically decorated movement, but it does show some decoration. And I'll just show you the action of the chronograph there. Okay, start that. Right, don't know whether that translated, but okay. Stop, start, and you can see that I guess assembly there engaging that central wheel, which starts the red seconds hand on the chronograph counting. I'm just going to stop it and then reset. And I got to say, the pushes feel pretty good in this case. The pushes do have a nice feel to it. That is, I guess, a thing that column wheels are better known for compared to the counterpart of the cam actuation. They do have a more, I guess, a buttery smooth feel. I will give it that, but that's down to the Seagull movement rather than I think the manufacturer, the specific manufacturer in this case. Okay, so the loom in this case is on the hour markings plus the hour and minute hands. Nothing else is loomed. So in the dark, you can obviously tell the time, but you're not going to be operating the chronograph in the dark here. That's not possible to read just by the loom. You'd have to have some sort of other light source. The crystal in this case is hardened mineral crystal. That's what they say it is. But they've done a pretty good job, I must say, to kind of ape the hard legs feel. It does have a very nice distortion on the side there. And it's pretty nicely domed. I will give it that. That shape there. So that's something I've enjoyed. And mineral crystal will be slightly more scratch resistant than hard legs. And this one is in pretty good condition. I don't see any nicks on it when I've looked at it. The bezel, what can I say? It's again just pure homage here. Black steel insert with the tachymeter scale there, and it really does copy the Speedmaster right down to the accent on that first E on the word tachymetre, you know, that non-English word there. Let me know if you know what that is. It sounds French to me, but that accent on the E is exactly the same as it is on the Moonwatch, you know, so it really just is lifted out of that. The bracelet, again, you know, is pure homage. It's alternating brush with polished pieces, and it is 5 pieces a link. You know, they've tried their best to do that, but you know, it's not screw changes. It's not a screw pin. It is just a push pin. The bracelet, interestingly as well, that they've gone for a solid metal clasp. You know, that really it does feel pretty solid. It looks like it's all machined, and there's no, you know, typical cheap pressed metal feeling of watches at this range. So good on them for pushing for that. This one, in this case, I suppose they've kept this for the Seamaster copy, so because it does have a suit extension that is, you know, aping Seamaster. I believe the Moonwatch doesn't have that. So this one they've added that particular feature here to keep it in, you know. But again, I'll point out a failure. You know, this pin here has failed. I've done just a very quick repair with the paperclip to hold that in place, but that failed some time ago. And I forgot to mention at the start, this is again from Graham, who made this watch available. So thank you again, Graham, for really, you know, giving me access to your collection. So, and then I'll just show you the brushing here, right? Alpha, what does that say? Professional chronograph. That's again pure Omega type of aping. Okay, so that's really the description of the watch here. You know, what have I enjoyed about this? Well, it is really a column wheel hand winding chronograph for under $200 US. You know, I was surprised when I reviewed that Seagull 1963. This, you know, undercuts even that in terms of pricing for a column wheel chronograph, and that's to its credit, you know, for putting this out for a very low price to get your hands on a column wheel chronograph. Let me know if you know of a cheaper alternative. This is the cheapest that I know so far. Now the style, you know, it stands out, right? I mean, it's really a very classic look, but it is purely derived. And the execution, I have to say, is largely substandard. You know, apart from, I would say, the way they've done that crystal, everything else kind of falls short, you know, in various ways. And I'll talk about the cons now. Let's just do a quick wrist shot while we, you know, switch topic, just to show you how it sits. And the first thing I'll mention is that if you look at the lugs, right, they're not hugging the wrists. And that's quite different from the original. They don't kind of like, you know, curve around the wrist. It kind of just sits there as a bit of a slab. And that's the first thing I'll say about the lack of refinement in the finishing here. But, you know, that's how it sits like on the wrist. Fair enough, right? Okay, so the lack of refinement, I've complained about the crown already. This really does not feel refined. It is very difficult to screw in. There's something about the threading and the tightness and just the feel of this. It's very hard to pull out. I struggled to pull it out to the second position to adjust the time. You saw that earlier. So that just doesn't quite do it, you know, in contrast to the pushes, which are actually okay. Lug crafting, so again, I'll show you on the side view, right? They just don't curve down as much as they should. This kind of just sits almost like a flat piece of steel on your wrist, and with that you know, considerable lug to lug width, I think it's around 48 millimeters or so. That you know, that really does sit a little bit too proudly. That they didn't quite get that right. The class, you know, whilst they've gone for machined feeling, it just doesn't feel the same. That's quite chunky, you know, a little bit tough, a little bit sticky on that suit extension. And then this bit here, It's okay, I suppose, but you know, it certainly doesn't feel like an original Omega by any means. It's functional, but at the same time, I've mentioned the failure of that pin there. Maybe that's a sign of the level of engineering quality that goes into this. But again, under $200, how much can you expect, right? Okay, so the crown design as well, I will say, why have they put in a screw-in crown on a manual wind chronograph? Who knows? That's just bizarre. This is not designed for being waterproof. You know, it's rated at 50 meters, so it's really not designed for being waterproof. So why put in a screw-in crown? Is that a mistake? Is that an an oversight? I don't know. You know, I think a lot of the manual wind ones do wind in the default position. The Moon watch does. It's annoying to have to unscrew this to wind this watch, especially when the unscrewing is actually pretty difficult. You know, not a pleasure to do. And then, you know, just to point out the homage nature of this, everything that they've homage, you know, yep, it's got the style. The obvious thing that they haven't is the alpha, and that's the worst looking thing in this watch. You know, that's just, it just isn't cool looking. It's just very rough. It's almost like you just randomly chose a font in your word processor and you've just kind of stuck it there. It doesn't look like it's well thought out. It's not even applied. It's just printed on the dial there. You know, so I gotta say, they've aped this Moon watch. Why doesn't it say something like Fast Lord or Quick Expert? You know, just to push that homage. You know, you've gone for Alpha versus Omega. Why isn't there a Speedmaster analog name on there? Who knows? Maybe they can't come up with one. So, you know, I think some very serious homage issues here. Graham himself has said that he doesn't wear this because you know, come up against someone who knows watches and it's just not going to be a good look. You know, I guess I maybe don't mind as much. You know, it's not a complete knockoff. So I probably wear it, but you know, many people probably wouldn't touch this. So there you go, guys. Thank you for watching this far. It's gone on a bit long, but I have had a lot to say about this. Guys, if you enjoy my videos, do consider subscribing. I put out new content every week, always aiming to be unbiased and objective about all things horology. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you next time.